origin card hand dot get position J. All right, so let me zoom this in. All right, so basically what's happening here is that we are just using this if conditional statement to check if the origin card hand dot get position 0 dot face is equal to the current rank. So basically, we already know that this current rank is associated with the hash map, right? So this current rank here, we're going to take whatever the current rank is, just say A, okay? And what we're going to be doing is we're going to check if the origin card hand at the current position is equal to the current rank. And then if it is, what's going to happen is that we're going to add that to the sorted card hand. So basically what's happening is that we're going to, let me just do this. All right, so basically in the hash map here, we're going to first of all start off here at the first element. We're going to start off with A. Then next we're going to go to K, and then Q, and then J. So what's going to happen is that we're going to have our own set of cards in our hand. And what we're doing is we're basically ordering the cards in such a way so that it matches this HM ranks map. Now, keep in mind that this is simply just sorting the cards. So there may be a hand of cards that you have that may not actually have all of these ranks. Like it's probably not going to have exactly like ace, king, queen, jack, 10, 9. It probably won't have all of these, but if it does start off, let's just say we have a hand of cards and it starts off with an 8. So what's going to happen is that it's going to grab that 8, because if it doesn't have any of these, it just starts off with 8. It's going to then check the next card and then basically add these cards to the sorted hand based on this general HM ranks hash map that we've created. So hopefully this does make sense to you guys, but I'm just going to continue coding. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below. This may be a little bit confusing, but I just want to make sure you guys are kind of following along. All right, so after this, what I want to do is actually make my way out of this loop and then just go print out the sorted card hand. All right, and then we're going to return the sorted card hand. All right, so this is all the code that we really need. Yeah, this is pretty much all the code that we really need right now. We eventually are going to need another piece of code in here, and I'm just gonna add it down here. This can be commented out because there's going to be another method that I create for checking the descending incrementally, which is just going to be check All right, so the number one thing I want to do right now is actually just show you guys this in action. Just give me a second. All right, guys, so as you can see, we have a determine the hand object that we've created here. And what we are doing, we're passing in the cards that the user has entered. And then after that, we're calling a method, determine the hand, or dh.sortHand, which takes us directly to the method that we've just created right here. All right, so what we're going to do, we're basically just going to step through this code just like this. So we're going to enter in some cards, right? These cards are not going to be in sorted order. So let's just go 8 of hearts, 2 of spades, king of diamonds, queen, clubs, and we're just going to have something random like 7 of hearts. As you can see, we have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 cards here, right? And in this determine the hand method, we're going to be executing this sort.hand. We've called this method sort hand. All right, and what's supposed to happen is that when we run the application or press enter after this, it's supposed to give us a sorted card hand. So let's just go ahead and do it. All right, let's see. All right, so what's happening here is that we need a toString method in our card class. So let's just stop this for a minute. There needs to be a toString method. And this toString method is basically supposed to be right here. I'm just going to go override public string to string return space plus suit. All right, so let's see if we can try to do this again. Keep the same cards. So as you can see, it jumps straight down here, sorted card hand. That's what we have in our sorted card. So basically, as you can see, let me zoom this in. All right, guys, so as you can see, we have 8 of hearts, 2 of spades, king of diamonds, queen of clubs, 7 of hearts. So what's happening is that we're sorting the card hand from the highest rank to the lowest rank. King of diamonds, queen of clubs, 8 of hearts, 7 of hearts, 2 of spades. And these are ordered all based on ranking. And that's all for the sorted method. So we're pretty much done with this sorted hand method that we've created. All right, guys, so I'm going to continue with the helper methods. The next helper method is going to be the check descending incrementally method. And this method is going to be used to check if each card in the hand is descending incrementally. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward with the method header. Private Boolean check descending incrementally. And this method is actually going to take 2 parameters. One parameter is going to be an array list of type card. Sorted card hand. And then the other parameter is just going to be a hash map. Hash map, integer, string, HM ranks. All right, and this method is looking for a return statement. Set that for false for now. And what I want to do is also add some comments up here. So this method is a method that checks if each card in the hand is descending incrementally. Based on card rank. So I'm going to just explain this a little bit more again. So basically, this is an example of the card hand that will be descending incrementally. You guys, a little example right here. So the example is going to look something like this. Let's just say Ace of Clubs, King of Hearts, Queen of Diamonds, Jack of Spades, and 10 of Hearts. So as you can see here in this particular card hand, you can see we have 5 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And basically you can see that when you look at the first card, it's an ace. The second card is a king. So as you can see, there are no other cards that can go between an ace and a king when it comes to ranking these cards in order. So this is an example of a card hand descending incrementally, and that's what we will have to go about and check when this method is executed. So this is just an example of a card hand descending incrementally. And the reason I say descending incrementally is because it's going from the highest to the lowest. And this is an example of what it's not. So let's just say we have something like this. 10 of Hearts. There we go. 8 of Diamonds. 4 Clubs. 3 of Hearts. 2 of Hearts. All right, so as you can see here, this is an example of a card hand that is not descending incrementally. So you can see we have a 10, then we have an 8. We know if this was going to be descending incrementally, it would go 10 and then it would go 9. As you can see, in this particular hand, it does not have a 9. So it goes from 10 to 8. It skips that 9, and also from 8 to 4. So 8 to 4, we're going to have to go through 7, 6, 5 in order to get the 4. So as you can see, this is just not an example of a card hand descending incrementally. And basically, this is what this method is supposed to check for. It's going to return a Boolean, either true or false, to determine whether a set of cards that the user's passed in is descending incrementally. So I'm just going to remove this for now. And then we're just going to jump right into the code. So first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need a for loop. We're just going to go for int k equals 0. K is lesser than hm ranks.size k plus plus. All right. So inside of this for loop, what we're going to do, we're going to have ourselves an if condition. It's just going to go if string, we're just going to do it like this so it makes it easier to read. All right. String.value of sorted card hand dot get at position 0 dot get face dot equals hm ranks dot get at k and string dot value of. I'm going to explain all this later. Just going to go ahead and write the code for now. Sorted card hand dot get at position I dot get face dot equals HM ranks dot get K plus 1 and string dot value of sorted card and dot get at position 2 dot get face dot equals HM ranks dot get at position K plus 2 and string dot value of sorted card hand dot get at position 3 dot get face dot equals HM ranks dot get at K plus 3 and string dot value of sorted card hand dot get at position 4 dot get face dot equals HM ranks dot get at position K plus 4. All right. All right, let's just zoom this out for a bit. All right, so let's explain what's going on right here. So basically what we're doing, we have a loop here, and this loop is going to make its way through all of the HM ranks. So we know basically that HM ranks is going to be the ranks in this hash map here. All right, so as you can see, this hash map, it has a key value pair. Integer is the key, string is the value. You can see it has each one of the ranks. So what's going to happen is that we're going to compare the 5 cards against the order of this hash map here. So I did want to also point this out. Earlier I did comment this piece of code out, but this is the code that we're actually going to be using to check whether or not the sorted card hand is descending incrementally. So as you can see, we have a check descending incrementally. It's going to take in the sorted card hand, which is the hand entered in by the user in sorted order, and then we're going to have a HM ranks, which is going to be passed into here. So basically, down here, we're going to iterate through all of the ranks of the hash map, and then we're going to compare the cards against this hash map ranks hash map. Yeah, so basically that's what we're doing when we have this if conditional here. So for example, we have a sorted card hand in position 0. We're going to see if this is equal to any value in the HM ranks hash map. And then if it is, then it's going to also check the next card for the next rank in the hash map in that order. So hopefully this makes sense to you guys. Basically what's going on here is just comparing the sorted card hand against the HM ranks. And basically from here we're going to be able to determine if the sorted card hand is descending incrementally. So basically after we have this if statement here, we're just going to do this. System.out.println descending incrementally. All right, and then after that is descending incrementally. Equals true, and then break. And then after this, what we're going to do is we're ultimately going to return descending incrementally. is descending incrementally. All right, so basically what's happening here is I have this method, and this method is going to have this if condition that is checking to determine if the cards are descending incrementally. If the cards are descending incrementally, we're going to simply just print out descending incrementally. It's just going to be printed out to the console. After that, we're also going to set this Boolean variable that we created from before. We're going to set that to true. And if it never makes its way to this code inside this if conditional, then we automatically know that the is descending incrementally is going to be set to false. So we can actually try this out right now. But before we try this out, let's uncomment this line here, check descending incrementally, so we can actually call this method. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to put a breakpoint here, and we can also put a breakpoint right here. Now, this is what we're going to do. We need to determine if the cards are descending incrementally. We can use our example right here. Enter in 5 cards. Zoom in. As you can see, we have an ace, king, queen, jack, and then a 10. So if you press enter, it allows us to debug through the code, and it jumps straight here. Okay? Descending incrementally. So when we descend incrementally, we're just going to simply do this, and it's going to print it out, descending incrementally. And it's also going to set this value, which was initially false, is descending incrementally. This Boolean is going to set this to true. All right, so we can just go up, and now it's going to break out of that loop, because as soon as we know that it's descending incrementally, since all these have to be validated, it's going to break out of this loop because it's pretty much no longer needed. If all these conditions are met, we can break out of this loop. Then we have the value, which will be set to true. So this is descending incrementally. All right, so we can actually try this once more with a hand that is not descending incrementally. So we can do something like this. So run the application again, and we can do something like this. So we're going to change some stuff around now. So let's just say this is going to be, we're going to not descend incrementally now. So we're just going to go 10, 7, 3. Or we can just go 10, 7, 3, and then we're just going to say 2. All right, so as you can see, this is not descending incrementally. I have an ace, 10, 7, 3, and 2. All right, so let's go ahead and press enter. It's going to be set to false. The reason this is set to false is because none of these conditions are met. So this particular hand is not descending incrementally. So hopefully this makes sense to you guys. It's pretty straightforward, but this is the check descending incrementally helper method. All right, guys, so the next helper method is going to be the suit equal method. Now, this is going to be a method that returns a Boolean, and it's going to determine if all cards in the hand have the same suit or not. So we're going to first of all start off with a comment. We're just going to go determines if all cards in hand have the same suit or not. All right, so the header is going to look something like this. Public static boolean suit equal. And then this method is going to take in only one parameter, which will be an array list of type card. I'm going to name it sorted card hand, this parameter. We know we also need to have a return statement there, but I'm just going to go with false for now. All right, so suit equal. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go through all of the cards within the sorted card hand. So to do that, we just need to go for int I equals 0. I is lesser than sorted card hand dot size I plus plus. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to have ourselves an if conditional statement. And the if statement is going to look something like this. If sorted card hand dot get at position 0 dot get suit dot equals sorted card hand dot get at position 1 dot get suit and then we're just going to go and all right, and then we're just going to go and. Then we're just going to go sorted card hand dot get at position 1 dot get suit dot equals sorted card hand dot get to dot get suit then we're just gonna add an and right here. And actually, I just want to make sure that these parentheses kind of line up. All right. All right, so we have this conditional here and sorted card hand. All All right. Sorted card hand dot get at position 2 dot equals, I get suit actually, equals sorted card hand dot get at position 3 get suit actually I think we can remove these. All right, and sorted card hand dot get position 3 dot get suit dot equals sorted card hand dot get 4 dot get suit, and I'll explain all this in a minute. All right, so let's just go over this really quick. So we have our suit equals method, and we know it's going to take in a sorted card hand. And basically what we're doing is we're going to iterate through this entire sorted card hand that we have. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to have the sorted card hand, and this if conditional, we're going to check for this condition. If the sorted card hand at position 0 dot suit equals the sorted card hand at position 1. So it's basically checking the next card in the hand rank. So from left to right, we're going to first start off at the first card, and we're going to check the suit of that card. And then we're going to go to the second card and compare it against the first card. We then are going to take the second card and compare it against the third card. And then we're going to take the third card, compare it against the fourth card, and then the fourth card and compare it against the fifth card. So we're basically just checking to ensure or just make sure that the suits are equal. So this is pretty much what we're doing with this particular method. We're going to return a Boolean. So here we just need to go, we could actually print out all suits are equal, and then at the end we can just go return true, and then you can just return false here in the return statement. So this is pretty straightforward. What's happening here is that we're basically just comparing the current card with the next card in the card hand. So this should be pretty straightforward. I'm wondering, do I even need these extra lines here? Okay, yeah, I think we do need these. All right. All right, so we're good. Just save. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to try this out. And it's going to either return true or false. What we're going to be doing, we're going to just check and see if the suit is equal. So we can go back here, and we have the sort hand. We can also check and see if the suits are equal. So for right now, we're going to comment out the sort hand method, and then we're just going to try this out. dh dot see. Well, actually, we can do this. We can do the sort hand method here, and in this sort hand method, we can check and see if the suits are equal. But ultimately, this suit equal is going to actually be used in the methods that are supposed to determine the hand ranking. But just for testing this out, we're just going to go up to our sort method, and right here we're just going to go suit equal, sorted card hand. All right. So basically, after this hand is sorted, we're going to pass it to the suit equal method, and now we're just going to determine if all the suits in the current hand are equal or not. All right. So I'm not going to check the descending right now since we already did that. And we're just going to execute this method here. So run the app, and then just go, for example, let's just go king, heart, queen, heart, jack, heart, 10, heart, 9, heart. All right, so just zoom this in. So as you can see, we have 5 cards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we see that each one of the suits are hearts. So eventually, we're going to hit this method. So let's go ahead and press enter. All right, so all suits are equal. So basically what happened is that you have this if conditional statement. All of this is going to be checked. It returned true, basically meaning that all suits are equal. Now we can try this out again. With suits that are not equal. So it's basically going to return false on this test here. So I'm going to just run this and just go king of hearts, queen of diamonds, jack of hearts, 10 of hearts, 9 spades. So as you can see here, all the suits are not equal. All right, so I'm just going to press enter. And it's going to jump to this suit equal method. I'm going to go into it. It's going to return false. And it's not going to print out anything because I don't have any system.out to print if the suits are not equal. So this is pretty much it. As far as the suit equal method, this is the method. Hopefully you guys understand. And as I said, if you have any questions, go ahead and just leave them in the comments below. All right, guys, so the next method that we're going to jump into is going to be called the check all ranks method. And ultimately, this method will take a passed-in hand and run it through all rank methods to determine the type of hand that is passed in. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to write a comment first. Method that will take the passed-in hand and run it through all rank methods to determine the type of hand passed in. All right. Give me a second. All right. All right, so let's just get started. We're just going to implement the method now. Public void check all ranks. And let's see. All right, there we go. Just wanted to zoom that in for you guys. All right, so let's check all ranks. And what we're going to do, we're going to create these methods that don't exist yet, but we're eventually going to implement these methods. So the first method is going to be check royal flush. this dot sorted card hand, check straight, flush, this dot sorted card hand, check, 4 of a kind, this dot sorted card hand, check, full house. We're going to pass in the this dot sorted card hand, and then we're just going to go check, flush, this dot sorted card hand, check, straight, and then check 3 of a kind, this dot sorted card hand, and then check 2 pair, this dot sorted card hand, and then check high card, this dot sorted card hand. All right, so as you can see, I've created calls to each one of these methods. What I'm going to do is comment out all of the methods except the royal flush method. One second. All right, so what we have now, we have the check royal flush method that we have here. So what we're going to do with this check all ranks method, what's going to happen is that when we call this check all ranks method, what's going to happen is that it's going to execute this check royal flush method. Ultimately, it's going to execute all of these methods, but for right now, we're just going to have this check royal flush method uncommented for now. All right, so what's going to happen is that usually when you execute this check all ranks method, it's supposed to execute all these methods, but yeah, we're just going to focus on check royal flush. So let's just implement that right now, the royal flush method, and zoom this in for you guys once more. And I'm going to write a comment here. All 5 cards are ace, king, queen, jack, 10, and all same suit. All right. So this is what this particular method is supposed to check. So what I want to do is this. I can create this, create method, royal flush. And actually we can remove this and just put it here. All right. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward what this method is supposed to do. It's supposed to check a royal flush. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass in a sorted card hand. All right, so yeah, we're going to pass in a sorted card hand. And this method is ultimately going to return a Boolean, actually. Which will be is royal is royal flush. Okay. So now we need to just go ahead and just start implementing the method. All right, so we're just going to start off with an if conditional statement. And this if conditional statement is going to first determine if all of the suits in the current hand are the same. And we can just simply do that by going if suit equals sorted card hand, and then if this is true, then this means that all of the suits are equal. And we're just going to go sorted card hand dot get at position 0 dot get face dot equals A. We're going to go and sorted card hand dot get at position 1 dot get face dot equals K. And sorted card hand dot get position 2 dot get face dot equals Q. And sorted card hand dot get at position 3 dot get face dot equals T. And last but not least, sorted card hand dot get position 4 dot get face dot equals T. And this is actually supposed to be J right here. Made a mistake. All right. So as you guys can see, this method is pretty straightforward so far. Right now, we just have an if conditional statement. It's going to check and see whether or not the sorted card hand all have the same suit. And then it's also going to check each position of the sorted card hand for these particular values: the ace, king, queen, jack, and the 10. If the sorted card hand has all of these rankings in this order, then it is a royal flush. So we're just going to go is royal flush equals true. Pretty simple. Else is royal flush equals false. And ultimately, we're just going to return the royal flush. All right, so what we can do now is zoom this out, save. And what we're going to do now is simply just run the application. All right, so this application we have here, let me just close this. All right, so what we're going to do, we're just going to run the application now. So we have this check all ranks method. And then we want to go back in our app.java class. So in our app.java class, we need to uncomment this. So it's going to go something like this. So what's going to happen is that we're going to call this method check all ranks. We already have a method up here for sorting the cards that we pass in. But now with this determine the hand object, we're going to check all the ranks based on the card that is passed in. All right, so it's just going to save, and then we're going to simply run the application. I'm going to enter in 5 cards, which are pretty much just going to be ace, hearts. Try to zoom this in. All right, ace of hearts. We're going to go king of hearts, queen of hearts, jack of hearts, 10 of hearts. All right. All right, so what we're going to do now, press enter. And what we have here is the hand that we passed in, and then it's going to sort the hand. It was already in sorted order. What's happening here is that we know that this hand that is passed in is descending incrementally and all suits are equal. So what we need to do just to determine if this is a royal flush or not is this. All right, we need to go back to our determine the hand method, and we need to say if it is true, then we want to print something out. All right, so we can just simply go .println, then we can just go you have a royal flush. So we can just go something like you have a royal flush. All right, you can just go to save. And as you see here, we really don't need any of these other lines printed out. So maybe we can go ahead and remove these as well. Descending incrementally, all suits are equal. Really don't need that. All suits are equal. Descending incrementally. And then we can just simply run the application again. All right, just zoom this in and just go. We're basically just going to go ace, hearts, king of hearts, queen of hearts, jack of hearts, 10 of hearts. Press enter. You have a royal flush. And we can also test this out with if these cards were not in sorted order. So instead of putting these in sorted order, we can actually run this application one more time in unsorted order. So we can go something like ace of hearts, and then queen of hearts, jack of hearts, 10. No, let's go K hearts and 10 of hearts. It's still going to give us a royal flush because what's going to happen once we press enter, we still have a royal flush. This is the value that we entered. This is the card hand after it's sorted, and then you have a royal flush. We can also try this out one more time and enter in a set of cards that are not equal to a royal flush. So we can do something like this. Ace, hearts, king of diamonds, queen, spades, 5 hearts, jack of clubs. Press enter. It doesn't print out that it's a royal flush because it definitely is not a royal flush. It puts these cards in sorted order, but it's not a royal flush, so nothing's showing up here. So that is the royal flush method. All right, guys, so the next method we're going to implement is the straight flush method. And this is basically going to be a method where any 5 cards of sequential rank are all going to have the same suit. So I'm going to go ahead and just start implementing this now. Zoom this in for you guys. First of all, I'm just going to add a comment so we know exactly what the method is going to be doing. Determine if the card hand consists of any 5 cards. You know, let's just do it like this. Make it simpler. Any 5 cards of sequential rank and all have the same suit. So ultimately, this is what this method is going to determine. So I'm going to go ahead and go back up here and uncomment, check straight flush, and then we're going to go ahead and just implement this method. We can just move this. All right, and then we're just going to put it down here. This is also going to return a Boolean. We're just going to go return is straight flush. All right, so the straight flush is going to be somewhat similar to our royal flush method, but what we're doing here is we just have to make sure that the card hand passed in is going to be 5 cards, and it can be any 5 cards, but they have to be of sequential rank, and they all have to have the same suit. So to determine that, we would first need to create ourselves an if conditional statement. We just want to go if suit equal sorted card hand equals true, and is descending incrementally equals true, then we're going to return is straight flush. No, actually, we're just going to go, not return, but actually is straight flush equals true. That's what I meant to type. Is straight flush equals true, and then else is straight flush equals false. All right, so this method is pretty straightforward. So let me just go through this if conditional statement to make sure you guys understand. So what we have here is an if conditional statement. We're first checking if the suits are all equal. As we know, just like I said before, straight flush is when there are any 5 cards and they have to be in sequential rank and they have to all have the same suit. So right here, we're checking if all the cards have the same suit, and then we're also checking are the 5 cards are descending incrementally. So ultimately, we're just checking these 2 conditions, which satisfies exactly what a straight flush is. All right, and this is pretty much it. And what I'm doing in this if conditional statement, if it does satisfy these 2 conditions, then it is a straight flush. If it doesn't satisfy those 2 conditions, then straight flush will be set to false. And then we're simply just going to return is straight flush. All right, and what I want to do also is just have like a little example here of what a straight flush is.